So we're going to keep going through some of the audience questions. These are Andrew's fans asking really, really good questions, and I think they're worth spending time on. So the next one is, does a heat protectant go on wet, damp hair, or just on already dried hair, or does it not matter?
I don't know how much it actually matters. When I use heat protectant, I just put it on before I blow dry, whether or not the hair is damp already. Because sometimes, like with hair like yours is sitting right now, if I just want to straighten it, I'm not going to re-wet it and then straighten it. I'll just hit it with some heat protectant and then blow dry it after since it's already dry. The other thing too about heat protectant while we're here, I think everybody should use it in the salon or barbershop, not because I think everyone's hair is going to get damaged, but because most people don't use it at home. So when you use it in the salon or barbershop, they're like, oh, I got a little something extra that I don't use at home. Mm-hmm. So like everybody should just use a really nice smelling heat protectant every time.
Okay. Look Good Luck asks, what have you done to move forward in moments of self-doubt, especially about your abilities or place in the industry?
Oh, that's tough.
That's good.
I guess when I've felt stuck, things that I've done is step back, take a weekend and turn off my phone. Like I've left my phone in the glove box of my car for like 3 days at a time, just to disconnect and remember where I'm going and what I'm trying to do. Because it's crazy how sometimes the littlest things will get me hung up, and I'll get in this like stupid loop that doesn't have an end to it. And so I have to like check out. I go to Disneyland alone. That's what I do. And I'll just like go to Disneyland, leave my phone in the glove box, and 6 hours later, I come back to fresh ideas. The other thing too is if I'm stuck, I'll try to do a haircut or a hairstyle that I don't think looks good. Like let's just say you think mullets are ugly. If you're really stuck, try to do a mullet that looks good.
Interesting. Very interesting. You know, the unconscious thought, you just said that you go to Disneyland. Now, I find that if I swim in the pool, I have to put my phone down, right? And I find that during that 20 or 30 minutes that I'm swimming, I'm just inundated with creative thinking.
Yeah.
And that's one reason I love to do it. Best advice ever applied?
Earlier I mentioned Tab talking to me over tacos. He basically says it's not all about the technical skill, it's about everything else. And so that's like the biggest, most generic piece of advice that I've applied that's been like the ultimate overarching goal of my career, is to like put less and less emphasis on the technical work and focus more on the other things. So, yeah.
What is the most essential element of a service? Cut, style, experience, and how does ADH incorporate these elements?
It's actually, that's a trick question. The answer is your expertise. It's what you know about hair. It's what you know about the trends. It's what you know about teaching the client education. I would say that the most important thing, the difference between a $20 haircut and a $100 haircut, is if you go to somebody who's charging $100, more likely than not, they're an expert at hair. They can tell you how to change this or fix that. They can tell you what people in London are doing with their hair right now. It's that expertise, I think, is the most valuable part of what you offer. Because the thing is, our clients look at hair for 1 hour a month right before they get a haircut. They Google it, and maybe not even an hour, they look at it. For 10 minutes, they Google pictures of David Beckham, and that's as much as they think about hair. But we think about hair 24 hours a day. If I'm not cutting hair, I'm online reading about it or watching it. If I'm sitting in a movie theater, I'm not watching the movie, I'm judging everybody's haircut. So we develop, it's expertise, it's like experience. We have a working understanding of hair, and we act as sort of problem solvers. And so I would say that's the most important part.
Where do you see your business growing in 3 years?
Education in as many forms as possible.
So you're going to do education on different platforms?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm going to try to do a little bit of everything, more like private classes, more trade shows, probably online education, all kinds of anything I can do. It's like, I mentioned this earlier, but I used to get hung up on, do I want to help the consumer or do I want to help the professional? But The way I see it now is helping the professional helps the consumer. So I want to teach. I want to, I've been very fortunate in my career. It doesn't even seem real, like the opportunities I've been given. And it's the simple question, how did you do that? Like, simple enough question, but I rack my brain trying to figure it out so I can give it to other people, because I don't feel like I do work hard, but I don't feel like I deserve half of what I've gotten. And so I want to give it back to I need to teach other people how to get them there. And on top of it, I'll tell you, this drives me crazy. This is why education. Every day on my Instagram, I get a message from somebody saying, basically asking me a question that their barber could answer better. And then I go, somebody will say, hey, how should I cut my hair? And they'll send me a selfie. And that cracks me up. It's always shirtless guy in the bathroom. Hey, what should I do with my hair? And whenever I get that, I always say, well, what's your barber say? And then he goes, well, my barber doesn't talk about stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, your clients are messaging guys like me to get what they should be getting from you. And so that's why I'm so bent on education, because I can help that guy by getting his barber to do his job and to teach this guy and to inspire, educate, and possibly even entertain the guy and be his one-stop source for all things hair, so he can stop talking to strangers on the internet about his hair.
Okay, hey bro, when you hit goals and end a climb for these goals, when is a good time to set more goals?
Funny story, I don't set goals anymore. I don't set deadlines, I don't set goals. I started to find that if I gave myself a big, hairy, audacious goal and I worked toward it for a long time, whether or not I met that goal, I was depressed afterward. If I met the goal, I was like, now what do I work toward? And if I didn't meet the goal, I was like, dang, I'm unable. And so now, it sounds crazy, but if you ask me where do you see yourself in 5 years? Sleeping at your house, Holmes.
But you have a path.
Yeah, I don't know, to me, my goals are so fuzzy. I know the general direction I want to go. I used to set really specific goals, but I would constantly find out that I was wrong. I think Malcolm Gladwell says, if you're not constantly contradicting yourself, you're not thinking hard enough. And I used to have a real problem with YouTubers, and I thought oh, people on YouTube, they're taking away they took our jobs. They're devaluing what we do behind the chair. And I used to get so mad about that, and I was so bent on that for a year and a half, and then I completely changed my mind on it. Now what I realize is these YouTubers get guys who never cared about their hair to start caring about their hair, so they prime them to be my client. So I flip-flopped on that. And during that time, my goal was I wanted to make YouTubers obsolete by making hairstylists better. And but it was such a specific goal, and I don't even know if it's even achievable realistically. But yeah, when I set these specific goals, they're not, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I try not to set goals. I end up setting them by accident, but I really try not to. I try to just go with it. I know, I guess I have my internal compass, what I feel is right and wrong, and I just follow that. And then wherever, but I don't know where it's pointing at the end. It's just going somewhere, and I'm going to go that way.
Well, it's working, clearly. So Clippers and Barbells writes, I think you talked about a time when you started to lose some of the spark you originally had for hair, until hitting a point when you finally flipped the switch and dove in head first. No pun intended, I guess. What finally made you go all in and kept you from moving on to guitar making or professional barbecuing?
So he follows my private account. All I post on my personal account is tri-tips and pork bellies.
Nice.
Anyways, I would have to refer back to that taco session with Tab. That was huge for me, showing me that I was responsible for taking my career anywhere I wanted to take it. Before that, I just showed up to work and I did my work and maxed out the hours that I had in the day, and nobody was there to say, okay, go here next. And so that's where Tab kind of came in. But seeing how quickly that paid off, what he had taught me, I was like, whoa, well, wonder what else I can do. And even I've had people kind of criticize me for attempting to get more followers. I've done giveaways and things, and people go, oh, why don't you just be happy with the followers you have? And at this point, I kind of just do it to see if I can. Like, let's see if I can get to 200,000. And I kind of operate that way since this meeting with Tab. Is I'm just going to see if I can do it, just to see if I can.
Sure.
And so that's what gets me out of when I'm not motivated. I'm like, well, let's just see if I can do that.
Yeah, like a game, right?
Yeah,
just
like
treat it like fun.
Yeah, like when I started traveling a little bit to teach and stuff. At one time I thought, like, I wonder if I could spend more time on the road than at home in a month. And last October, I was in like Dublin, Belfast, London, New York, Kansas City. Like that whole month I was just gone.
Wow.
And so just to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it again, but so.
That's good advice. If there was anything in your career you could do differently, what would it be?
If I could go back to the beginning, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have branded myself with my actual name. Like I wouldn't have Andrew in it, and I wouldn't have branded myself with the word hair in it. So I guess I would just be Does. But
Andrew Does.
No, like I get really weird when people know my last name, and I don't get as weird when they know my first name, but it's definitely hard to... Being so attached to a brand that is so personal makes it hard to go, oh, it's just business. It's just business. Because it's me. It's Andrew. And so when I have to like chop off heads or do something really not nice, it's hard for me to do it. So I wish that I would have been like, no, this establishment that has a name that has nothing to do with me, I can operate that as a puppet, but I don't feel like I can work that way because my brand is me, and that's tough. Right. Like if I could go back knowing everything I know now, I would be like the Banksy of hair. I would never show anybody my face. I would never use my real name on anything. I would like wear a mask on stage.
I love that. That's a good answer. So how did you come up with ADH Dry?
Oh, this is a long one. I'll try the shortest version possible. I used to use a product by Redken that I loved, and for years it was literally the only hair product I used. This was back when everybody just had messy bedheads, so I didn't have a need for a pomade at the time. But I used this one product all the time, and then they discontinued it with no warning and no explanation. And so for like 6 months I tried different products, couldn't find anything I liked, and I was really depressed because nothing was magic like that product was. And then I found another product by Matrix called Beach Clay that was almost identical. Like I'd be willing to bet they were made in the same factory. And I started using that for a few years. And during that time, the slick looks and the pomades became popular. So I started using Layrite and Imperial and these other products. And then that Beach Clay was discontinued. And I had like no messy matte product anymore. It was all I had was pomades. So around that time, I knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a chemist who had done makeup and lotion. And I went to them and I brought like my one last jar of this clay that I liked. And I said, can you make me something like this? And so they made up a couple sample jars, and I tweaked it a little. I said, make it a little more matte, make it a little softer, make it not get as hard. And eventually when they had it right, I found a manufacturer, and I only planned on selling it in my salon. In fact, the first batch came in unlabeled jars. And I was just going to sell it to my clients, but then people on Instagram are like, well, what are you using to style hair? And so I eventually, after I sold the first batch, I hired a graphic artist guy to do labels. And then after I sold that batch, I got a website and I got legal stuff and trademarks. And next thing I knew, like my barber friends and hairstylist friends wanted to buy it from me at wholesale, and like just slowly I fell into having this product line that I never dreamed to have. I just wanted to fill my need for the product that kept getting discontinued. And today we have in the US about 200 resellers. In the UK we have, I don't even know how many, but like when I go to Ireland, the thing that blows me away is I'll walk into a random barbershop and I'm like, oh, there's my product. Like when we walked into that other shop in here and I was just like, oh, it's there. Yeah. But I never dreamed of that. Like I said, I don't set goals. I was never like, oh, I'm gonna have a product line one day. It just kind of happened. And like I looked at it was total baby steps. Like I made the product because I needed it, and then someone else asked for some, and then someone else asked for some. Right. And I'm like, okay. Natural. Yeah, and then eventually I got to the point where I was working full-time in the salon. I was trying to start doing education. I didn't have time to ship orders. I would ship like one day a week, and people were always mad that they're like, I ordered 9 days ago. And right. So I finally hired a guy, my best friend David, and he runs the company, and he turned it into a successful-ish business. That's like, which the sad thing is now I have no idea what's going on with it. Like I'll meet people and go, oh, have you heard of my product? And they're like, oh, I've been carrying it for a year. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, well, that's the inevitability.
So that's how that all happened.
And so how could somebody source it and buy it wholesale today?
Oh, thank you. You'll want to email David, sales@adhbrand.com. And what he'll do is we walk you through a process where we get your salon info, and I think he takes license numbers just so that, we don't want someone selling it out of their garage or something. It's professionals only. And then you get a wholesale account, and he ships like same day. He's on top of it. We're a small company. It's me and him, and I know nothing, and he runs everything. And so you're really helping a grassroots effort if you get involved.
Yeah, thank God for David, right? Do you plan on making a hairspray to go with ADH Dry and ADH Wet for that perfect combo?
I've thought about it off and on, and I've started working toward it, and then I go, nah. And the thing is, like, when I did ADH Dry, it was because I couldn't find anything that would fit the need for me. When I did ADH Wet, it was because, and I've never said this in front of an open audience before, but there's a million pomades on the market, but they're all like, hey, you have to be a barber and a rockabilly greaser to use this. And I was like, what if you're just a dude? And what if you work in a salon? So, ADH Wet isn't anything too different from what else is on the market, except that it's branded to fit for anybody. It's not, you don't have to drive an old Cadillac and have like cuffed up jeans to use it. So as far as the hairsprays, I have a hard time. I'll start to develop one, and I'm like, every other hairspray works just fine. So, I don't want to make a product just to make a product. I want to make a product when I have a legitimate need for it. I think I would do a dry shampoo before I would do a hairspray, but I don't know. I like the streamlined, like in my studio, I literally have 2 jars of product. I don't use hairspray anymore. I use water more than I use hairspray, but.
What tools do you use for blow drying wavy, thick hair straight? What boar bristle brush is decent enough, and what blow dryer as well?
I have 4 blow dryers. There's a write-up on my Instagram page about them, but I'll go over it quickly here. And I cycle between the 4, just kind of whenever I get bored. They all work good, but they're just slightly different. I use an Ibiza Cristal 3600. I use a Parlux 385 Power Light. I use a Babyliss Pro Rapido, and what's the other one? Oh, and I use a Dyson. But they all work well. I wouldn't say anyone is better than the other. They're just slightly different. The thing about a hairdryer is people ask me, when do I need a professional hairdryer? And I say, well, are you a professional? Then yes. The difference between a $50 hairdryer and a $150 hairdryer is about 3 minutes of blow drying, which if you're just drying your own hair every morning, no big deal. But if you're drying 10 heads a day, and you save 3 minutes on each one, that's a burrito break. So that's when you need a professional grade hair dryer. It's funny to me, barbers will ask like, well, what's the cheapest hair dryer I can get? And I'll go, what's the cheapest clipper I can get? And then they go, no, you want to get good clippers. And I'm like, same thing. So as far as the boar bristle brush, I would say just stick with anything that's actual boar bristle and not synthetic. I found that with synthetic boar bristle, you don't get the same pull, you don't get the same smoothing. I like to buy ball-in tools just because I charge a lot for a haircut and want my clients to look at my gold combs and go, ooh, wow. So I use Ibiza brushes. They're like top of the line. I'm sure like every studio in this place probably uses Ibiza brushes. But yeah, I think it's a CX3 brush is the one that I would use, like to straighten hair like his.
And what kind of shears do you use?
I use all different kinds of shears. I'm not loyal to any one brand. If I were to be, I would lean toward Hanzo because of their customer service. My Hanzo rep is like the best guy in the world. And even before I had the Instagram following, because when I tell people this about him, they go, oh, of course, because you have a big following. But before I had the Instagram following, if I texted him and I said, hey, I need my shears sharpened, he'd be there in an hour with loaner shears. So I like that about Hanzo. And then as far as like the performance of one shear versus another, I'm not Vidal Sassoon. Like, I can't tell. I could tell the difference between like a $40 shear and a $500 shear, but I can't tell the difference between this $500 shear and that $500 shear. Like, I don't know. They all work the same to me.
Jonathan McFerrin writes, hi, Andrew. Where do you see the industry headed in the near future as it pertains to social media? Do you see Instagram continuing to be the place people look for inspiration, or do you think there's something else more hair specific on the horizon?
Well, I think Instagram is going to kill itself by all the advertising that it does now, and by screwing up the order of the feed. That nobody's a fan of that. I think Instagram will stay relevant for a long time. As far as what I don't think will happen is I think it'll be very rare for someone to get on Instagram now and then blow up. I think there's obviously probably guys out there who have the potential to do that and just haven't done it yet. But I think everybody's on Instagram now, so I don't think somebody who's new to Instagram will have the same opportunity to blow up as easily as they could have if they got on 5 years ago. And I do also think that, so for the future of hair and social media, everybody's going to do online education in the next few years. That's, you look at the fitness industry and everybody has like, oh, download my program. And so I think that hair is going to go that way. But I will say, as that becomes more popular, it'll only make more valuable things like hands-on classes that you can't download. It's just like with music. Everybody can download free music everywhere now. And so now you have giant concert festivals that are $700 for the weekend because they can't make money on music anymore. And so I think online education is going to be the way of the future for hair. But I think it's going to make even more valuable sitting down and learning directly from somebody.
Very interesting. Barber Daniel UK asks, do you still get nervous cutting hair? And if so, what tips do you have for managing this?
I get nervous if I'm cutting hair in front of a lot of people. Like when I did Barber Cut Dublin last year, there was like 400 people packed in that pub, and I was up there like going to cut someone's ear off. Other than that, the last few times I remember getting nervous cutting somebody's hair was other professionals who I was worried they were going to judge my technique or something. And what I realized is shortly, 2 minutes into the haircut, I stopped thinking about that, and I'm just doing what I know how to do. And whenever I would be nervous about cutting hair, I would just remind myself, like, wait, you've done this for 13 years or 12 years. You know what you're doing. It's like you forget that you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so, I would just remind myself, like, okay, Andrew, at 4 minutes in, you're going to just hit your stride and be normal again. So just get there now. And I don't know. So right. It's been a long time since I've been nervous doing a haircut. The other thing too is I think at this point, actually this is kind of huge. I reached a point in my career when I was hard to get an appointment with, where I realized everybody who sat in my chair knew on some level what to expect. And that took the nerves away. I found that, this is going to sound horrible, if I got a new client and I go, oh, did you hear me from Instagram? They go, no, what's Instagram? Then I'd get nervous. Because I'm like, their expectation, I need to impress them. Right. To where, like, if somebody came in and they know my style of work and they know what to expect from me, right, then I wasn't nervous. Mm-hmm. So
very interesting.
Yeah, that took away a lot of the nerves.
Last question, and this is the most important one of all questions. Will the mullet ever come back to style?
It's already back.
Back.
Realistically, I'll say this here and hope that some of you remember this in 2 to 5 years. When it comes to trends, okay, with hair, everything that solves a problem creates another problem. So when somebody comes in and they go, I have a hard time styling my hair. If I take it really short, like his hair is on the sides, he doesn't have to style the sides of his hair. I just solved that problem. But the problem it creates is, how often do you get your fade done? Every 2 or 3 weeks, right? Where when he never had a fade, he didn't get his hair cut that often. And so it created another problem. So what we do is we trade problems with hair. What I've noticed about trends is this: every problem that the last trend created, the next trend solves. So everybody wanted really slick, tight, combed over hair with heavy pomades, but the problem that it created is I can't touch my hair. I can't run my fingers through my hair. Everybody wanted really high, tight fades, but the problem it created is my whole life I got my hair cut every 6 weeks, but now I'm doing it every 2 weeks. So the next trend is going to be hair that you can touch, that you don't have to cut every 2 weeks, but you're gonna cut every 2 months. And so picture like Han Solo, or like Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges in the 80s.
Awesome.
So everything's been so tight and clean. The antithesis to that is going to make a big fat comeback. It's doing it already. And I think we're going to see hair in front of the ears a little bit. I think, to me, the coolest thing in the world is when you look at the front of somebody and you can see the hair and back from the front. But not quite a mullet, not to where it's longer than the rest, but just where there's enough weight here that I can kind of see the hair poking out from behind the ears. Like, I think that's going to be huge in the next 2 to 5 years. It'll be like mainstream status, almost like the probably a cross between like the Leonardo DiCaprio in the 90s, all long and pushed back, but like heavy here and here.
I love it. You're ahead of your time. So Andrew does hair obviously on Instagram. Where else can people find you?
Just there.
Okay.
I don't have enough energy to check any other sources.
Right.
You can go say mean things on my YouTube, but I don't check that.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
That. Where do I get one of those?
You can get it at Nail Artist FR, right?
Is that in here?
No, not in this Salon Republic. In the Salon Republic in Woodland Hills, Fabian, nail artist, does killer stuff. He actually did a portrait of my face on my wife's thumbnail for Father's Day, which is like crazy talented, but of course a little freaky, right? And so I try not to look at it. All right, thanks so much, and thanks everyone for paying attention. See you soon.